In this recording, I'm going to demonstrate how to import data from an Excel spreadsheet, Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, into a Microsoft Access database. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in this case, create a brand new blank database. And as always, what Access wants us to do is to give the database a name. So because this is the Donegal Dentist case study, I'm going to call it DDA, Donegal Dentist Appointments. And I'm going to assign it to a certain folder. So I'm going to put it in a folder on my desktop called DDA Screencasts for convenience. So the folder is this database is going to be stored in this folder on my desktop. So one of the things you always need to be aware of is when you're working with Access, where do you want to store the file that you create if you're doing this kind of an import task. So it often might be on a USB key, or it might be on somewhere in Drive C or wherever. So always be alert on that and know where you're going to store your database. So here I'm going to create the database, and what Access has done is, as the file name there is, it was DDA, and it's added on the extension .accdb, so it's an Access database. And I'm happy that it's going to be in this location on my desktop under this folder called DDA Screencasts. So all I now need to do is press create. So my database is now created, and there's a default table 1 there which offers us the chance to to put in column names and so on and other details, but I'm going to skip all of that. So I'm going to close off table 1. And rather than creating a database from within Access where I go to create some tables and then populate them with data, I'm going to take, as this gets a bit of a shortcut. So the shortcut means I'm going to get data from some other source. That's why I click on the External Data tab. And there's a range of choices here of different sources for the file. It could be a text file, an XML file, but in this case, it's a spreadsheet. So I'm going to choose an Excel spreadsheet as the place I'm going to import from. So when I make that choice, I'm then offered a default location as to where this spreadsheet might be. So it's suggesting it might be on Drive C in the internal folder in a subfolder called Documents. But I know it isn't. It's in another folder on my desktop. So I'm going to go to my desktop again, choose the DDA Screencasts folder, and here within this folder I have the spreadsheet of interest. The spreadsheet that has my dentist data, my appointment data, clinic data, patient data, and so on. So I'm going to choose this spreadsheet as the basis, as the source of the raw material really for my database. So this spreadsheet is going to feed the database with the relevant data. So I highlight it, and by opening it, I'm nominating it as the source of my the data I want to import. So now I'm faced with 2 choices. First choice is I import or I transfer the data from the spreadsheet, in this case, into tables in the new in this new database, or this current database I've called DDA. Or alternatively, I can link to the data in the spreadsheets. So if I were to choose the second option, it says Access, or Microsoft Access, will create a table that will maintain a link to the source data in Excel. And then any changes made to the source data in Excel will be reflected in the linked table. Okay. However, the source data cannot be changed from within Access. So that sort of limits us a bit. So I'm going to go back to the first of those 2 options, where I'm going to import the data or transfer the data across from the spreadsheet into the database. And at the end of this task then, all the data will be in the database, and you can forget or scrap or maybe delete the data in the spreadsheet and use the database as your starting point for any future work with this data. So I'm going to choose OK on that. So now, as I said, it now knows that the details about my database. And as mentioned earlier, I'm gone for the external data option, and I've chosen Excel. And Excel now prompts me, because it now realizes that the data I want to import is held in that spreadsheet. So just for convenience, I'm going to take the tables in as they are as they're laid out here in the list: patient, dentist, clinic, and appointment. So this first sheet, DDA short version, is the sheet that contains all of the data from all of the tables. So this is very cluttered, and it's totally unsuitable for importing because here you can see the appointment data starts in row 15. If I scroll over to my right, I'll see information about my more about my appointments. I then see my employer data, and if I scroll up, I'll see information about my dentists. So the one place I don't want to import from is this initial listing where all the tables that may have a role in this database are listed on one sheet. Instead, I'm going to go for the individual sheets called patient, dentist, clinic, and so on. So each sheet, in this case, only holds data about one of the potential tables. So here I have details about my patients. So if I scroll over here to my left, I'll see there's a patient ID, a forename, a surname, and the surname column is very, very long. So that's why it's not showing at the moment the other columns in this table. So if I scroll over to my right, I then see the address and the other details about a dentist. So they're feeling quite faint here, but the other columns currently on screen hold data about the patients, more data about the patients. So when I'm doing my import job, I could take a risk and hit finish, or I could kind of go through them in a methodical way in a number of steps. So that's why the next option is there. So anyway, I've chosen the patient table. Okay, now I've clicked on the dentist table, but I'm going to go back to patient because that's the one I want to import first. So I'm going to choose the next option rather than rushing to the finish option. So it doesn't like the field names here. There's something wrong with some of my field names in my spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend they aren't there, and I'm going to import the data anyway. Okay, so it says the first row here contains some data that can't be used for valid access field names. In these cases, the wizard would automatically assign valid field names. So I'm going to just take a risk here, and hopefully the errors aren't too serious, and that not too many columns are affected. But we'll learn in a moment when I press OK. So it seems to be okay that the data looks all right here. So over on my left, as I said again, I have the patient ID, surname, the forename, and then the surname, and then over further to my right, I see the address, the town, the age, the category, and the income of those people. Okay, my income looks suspect here, so it doesn't like the income data. Maybe it's just the way it's presented on screen. Appears to be that they look like commas, but they're probably your zeros that are a bit blurred out. So I think I'll chance that one. The bit that I don't like here is field 9. So field 9 in the spreadsheet, okay, appears to be a field or a column in the spreadsheet that appears to store data, but there actually is no data in it. So that's why Access thinks we need to import it. So we're going to skip field 9, or we're going to delete it later on when the table is set up. So I'm going to choose the next option again. And now what I've got a chance to do here is I've got a chance to go down through each field that's on offer and choose the appropriate data type for it. So here I have patient ID or PAT ID, and its default data type is, the one it's suggesting to me, is double. Now double means it's a particular type of number that has values after decimal point. So if I was trying to store 100.66 or 100.33, double would be okay for me. But all I want is an integer. These patient IDs you can see here are 3-digit numbers. So integer should be fine for patient ID. So then I go on to the FNAME field, and Access suggests it's going to be short text. SNAME is going to be short text as well. And then as I scroll over here to my right, the address is short text. The town is also short text. The age is double, so I don't need double. We'll imagine we're working just off whole years. We're not dealing with someone who's 55.5 years or 23.5 years or whatever. So again, an integer will be adequate or appropriate for the age. So after the age comes the category. I want to click on that. Hopefully Access will suggest more short text, and it does. And then it's go to income, and it suggests double again, which we're going to change back to integer again. So again, we'll imagine this business that you charge customers or you deal with customers who have whole numbers as their, in this case, as their incomes. So you're only worried about 20,000. You aren't worried about if it's 20,000 and 5 cents or 10 cents. And field 9 is going to come across again. It suggests to, and I could just import it and then delete it afterwards, but there's an option here where Access offers me the chance to eliminate it from the list. So I can choose the option not to import this field, and that's the most convenient way to pursue this. So I'm going to choose next, and after that point I am going to I have 3 choices here about primary keys. So I could let Access choose whatever column it thinks is the primary key or is the best fit for the primary key. I could choose my own primary key, or I might have no primary key. So here are my 3 choices, and for the moment I'm actually going to leave it with no primary key. Okay, I could maybe in most cases choose the column myself, but I'm going to leave that bit out for a moment for some of the tables at least. So I have the choice here, choose my own primary key, and if I click on drop down list, it offers me all the fields or column names in that table. I'm happy with the one called Pat ID, so I'll leave that as it stands. And then I'll proceed to the next. So I've done all the columns and their data types. And the only other concern we have is the primary key. So I'm going to choose the Pat ID as the primary key for this one. And I leave the rest of them for the moment. So I'll change it around the other tables. So I'm going to choose next. And again, Access, it uses the sheet name in Excel. So whatever name I gave the various tabs or sheets in Excel, Access has enough intelligence to suspect that I want those sheet names to become the table names in my database. So I have another option down here that says where I'd like a wizard to analyze my data after importing it, but I won't bother doing that for the minute. I'm just going to import the patient data and see what happens. So it's not going to allow the import to take place of this because an index or a primary key can't contain a null value. So it doesn't like something about it. Thinks some of my primary, some of the patient ID values are blank or are null. So therefore, it doesn't allow me to import the data properly using that because of that situation. So what I can do now is close the import process and see has this table called patient been created. When I double click on the patient table, I see it has been created. And I see that it has a patient ID, a first name, a surname, an address, a town, an age, a category, and an income. So this field over here called F9 has no role for me in the long run. So I can just delete that field. Okay, it asks me, do I want to permanently delete the field? Yes, I do. So I'm going to delete that field. And then the other thing I notice here is that in addition to the 7 or 8 patients we have with their various numbers from 101, 102, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. So there's 8 of them there. That there appears to be 3 dud records here at the bottom, 3 blank records. So before I proceed any further, I better remove those 3 blank records because they're serving no purpose at this stage. They'll only cause me trouble. So I'm going to delete them. I'm going to close the table now to make sure they've been deleted. I'm going to reopen the table again. So they're still there, at least 2 of them are still there. So maybe I didn't select them all properly. It's only offering me 1 at a time perhaps. So I'll delete them 1 at a time, just in case there's trouble. So I now have the 8 patients all saved, and I have the extra columns have been removed and the extra blank rows have been removed. So this row here with a star on it is essentially offering me the opportunity to add in a new row, but I won't do that. Okay, so as I said again, what we're doing here is we're importing data from a spreadsheet into a database, and in the import process, the important things you should look at carefully are the idea of choosing the appropriate data types. So for numbers, we want integers in this case because the patient ID is a whole number. So is the age and so is the income. And then the remaining columns are all text columns. So we've chosen text as the data type for those. So that's the end of the clip.